You'd never guess that the woman you're about to meet has a history full of trauma. Amber Palmer was bullied and ridiculed as a child, and she was sexually assaulted as a young woman. She witnessed verbal and physical abuse in her family, and she endured the tragic loss of many loved ones. You'd never guess that these things were true because her life today is full of genuine friendships, abundance, and creativity. In fact, this building behind me, it's a place where members of the community come to be healed, either through counseling, because Amber is a marriage and family therapist, or through art classes, which she facilitates. This building, home of the Chico Artist Collective, houses some of the most beautiful memories and artwork. How did she get to this place in her life? Stay tuned. She'll tell you. Today we welcome Amber Palmer. Amber is a marriage and family therapist, an artist, and she's also the founder and director of the Mind Vacation Fine Arts Program in Chico, California. Amber, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Why don't you go ahead and start wherever you feel comfortable?
Yes, I look forward to talking about how I feel that I have resiliency and that I have survived trauma and abuse over the years by the resources that I was given early on. And so I'd like to address my resources first and then talk about the traumas and how those resources might have helped.
That's a great way to do it.
To be able to not stay attached to the trauma and be able to move forward.
Absolutely.
So as a young child, I felt like before the age of 4, I was loved by my parents and grandparents, and we had an extended family. I was very fortunate in that I grew up as kind of a natural child where I could roam freely in the peach orchards that I lived in the middle of in Northern California. And I had a cowbell that was like my best friend that I took everywhere with me, so that alerted my parents when they needed me. I could ring the bell and I could come running and they wouldn't worry. And so that was my safety net. I always had cats or dogs or pets around who were like my best friend.
Yeah.
Then as I got older, I had people who, even if I only were around them short periods of time, they planted a seed where they showed me that they loved or appreciated who I was uniquely. I had an English teacher who encouraged me to continue with the reading that I did. Books were also my solace. I would spend hours and hours by myself at the top of the windmills that I wasn't supposed to be in the orchards or in a tree somewhere, an old barn, and I read and I drew.
So of course, you know, I love hearing that about your English teacher.
Yes.
And that books helped to save you.
Yes, they did. And I also had a little lady in my neighborhood who, because I didn't have a lot of friends, she would invite me in and encourage me to do crafts with her and, give me milk and cookies, and was just very delighted to have me be who I was.
Wow, bless people like that in the world, right?
Yes. That was really very, very helpful because the rest wasn't there all the time.
Yeah.
It was more challenging. And so I had a number of different people along the way. My father also would take me fishing with him, and he was a professional gambler, and he was consistently a winner, so he didn't have the gambling addiction, really.
Okay.
It was a job, but he taught me how to study people and how to trust and not trust, and how to read both body language, words, people's tells when they were lying or when there was something. He taught me an awful lot about the game of life. And my ability to at least have a piece of paper and cheap watercolors or a pen or pencil and to kind of draw out my feelings and find some solace through that, through my childhood.
Oh, yeah. Drawing helps a lot of people.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so those were the resources. And then, of course, there was, the researchers of finding I could go to college because I could get financial aid. Mm-hmm. And I'm the first woman and person in my family on both sides to ever have graduated from a university system. And so... And I was told women don't go to school. They get married and have babies.
Wow.
So, yeah, those were some of the resources.
Okay. So then, good thing you had some resources because you've been through some stuff.
Right. From a very early age, my family background was unstable and somewhat violent. Early memories of my father coming home late at night with blood all over him, my mother screaming and my father saying, "It's not my blood. I'm not."
Oh, my goodness. Wow.
I'm not dying. Someone had attacked him in a card game.
Wow.
And so that was one early memory of witness at an early age. But around the age of 4, I no longer was the baby. I was kicked off of the lap of being the favorite grandchild on both of my grandfather's side. And then one grandfather became extremely emotionally abusive. So I lost my position early on. That was pretty traumatic for me. And I was always a very different child. Growing up in Yuba City, the NAN report says one of the worst cities in the world, in the United States to get off on. And I was very different. And so I was teased and ostracized in school early on by most of the other children. And so that was difficult for me. I also realized that if I acted up in areas I didn't want to study, because I'm dyslexic and ADHD. I'm sure they would have given me Ritalin if they knew about that back then. So I would act up quite a bit in grammar school. Realized that if I didn't want to do something, if I acted up, I would just get kicked out. So I didn't. So being rebellious.
You kind of learned that as sort of an MO, a way to function and survive.
To buffer myself and to function and survive from the ridicule. I also am and I hate the word victim, but I like the word survivor better. But there was a parent in my household who was very physically abusive to my older sister. And I was a witness to that, and not being able to do anything to help in that circumstance was extremely difficult. And I had a lot of guilt and shame
that's traumatic.
Related to that. And I also, in teenage years, one of my sister's soon-to-be husband tried to molest me on the night of her wedding shower.
My goodness.
And then continued to try and harass me or molest me in my family's home over the years, until I finally stood up to him and said, "You touch me again and I will yell right here, right now in this, tell you to quit touching me," because he'd corner me in halls and things like that. I didn't speak up because my nickname from being a little child was Hoodlum. So I had been encouraged to be the kind of rebellious, rowdy one, and I didn't feel my parents would believe me.
Oh, wow.
And I also didn't want to break my sister's heart.
Right.
So there was that trauma. And
quick question. So when you stood up to him, did he stop?
He thought for a second I was bluffing, that I wasn't. He thought that I still felt like he had something over me, or that in some way he could harm me. When my tone got louder, he stopped.
Yeah.
And he occasionally would look at me with a leer from then on, and I would just look back at him like, go ahead.
See, I just pause with this moment because whatever it was that happened within you that gave you the strength to do that. And who knows, what that takes or where that comes from or how long it takes. It's different for everybody. But once you finally did.
At that time, I was 18 and I was married to my first husband, who was my escape route. That was another resource out of Yuba City. But at that point, I was already almost an adult. And so that gave me the strength, and that I just realized he was all bluff.
Yeah.
That I had I had more strength than he did.
That must have been kind of empowering for you, just to know that you could stand up to somebody.
That was very empowering to me at that point.
Yeah.
So there's been many, many other traumas along the way.
We spoke before the interview, and Amber told me about just one thing after another, and I thought to myself, how are you here, and how are you thriving? And even the last couple of years have been rough, and I think it goes back to those resources and that, sort of the building of who you are through the years, or maybe there's another way you would explain it.
I think that inner strength comes from something inside of me never quite got broken completely. Might have gotten splintered off for a while where I didn't even recognize that it was. I became a great imposter. I became a chameleon who could fit into or tried to fit into most environments that I could. I also felt my creativity was one of my strongest resources, that I could always turn to that into my own inner world. And I know at one point I actually felt like I made a choice not to go crazy. I could choose at that point to go off the edge when my mother was being horrid again or not. And I decided, it's kind of like choosing good and evil. I decided, no, I didn't want that, because then it would always be a weakness.
Yeah.
So instead, at a very early age, I started reading psychology books. And when my mother would act up, I would just read paragraphs from the book about what she was doing.
Wow. Yeah, I could see how that would help you feel like you had a little more understanding and a little more grounding about what was happening to you with her.
Right. And I was always drawn towards a deeper, even though I went to church as a child, I'm not a religious person, but I'm a spiritual person. And I've always felt a deep connection to something really spiritual, that if I listen, I feel connected to some direction. And over the years, and more so of late, the joy of manifesting and the joy of letting go of things that happened. I don't have to be those memories themselves.
Right.
I can remember them. And forgiveness isn't one of my big ones, but it's not also like I don't harbor and go over and over and over again the same scenario. Learning the Zen of letting things go has been really helpful for me. Not forgetting, but the forgiveness comes from myself.
Yeah.
And for myself, as much as becoming non-attached, that I no longer harbor resentful and negative and crippling emotions towards this person. They're no longer that important to me.
Well, and then that frees you up to live your life.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Without being encumbered by that.
And overcoming physical pain, that's a hard one.
Yeah.
But I've had lots of people who have been there to help me as an adult along the way. And so that I've had several people who have died of either cancer or Alzheimer's or, one of those
Well, and I know you
degenerative
lost your
things.
husband
Oh,
recently.
yes, and I lost my husband. I lost my dog just before my husband, and then I lost my husband last year. But I just I had so much love and appreciation, and during this time frame that things were happening, I was in the process of having the artist collective, as they love to be called, and I love to call them, building a sanctuary in my backyard that is so peaceful and meditative. And I have a koi pond with several koi fish and really beautiful landscaping. And so when my husband was dying and in and out of the hospital, and other things were happening that were very anxiety creating, I would go and count my fish and make sure my fish were there.
That's some therapy there, right?
Yeah, it was just like, some people count sidewalk streets. I counted my fish.
I love it.
Yeah, yes.
Well, and just knowing you, and I've just gotten to know you, especially this last year, I've gotten to know you a little more, and watching what you have done with this art collective, and just seeing the way that you are joyful and spread joy and encourage other artists and help empower other people. It's really amazing listening to all that you've been through, just thing after thing after thing. And then to see you now and how you're thriving. And boy, it sure, I would think, would give a lot of people hope that no matter what you've been through, there are ways to still live and find joy and move forward, and that resilience is real.
Yes, resilience is real. And finding joy and gratitude are the strengths that can help you let go of those things that are like quicksand.
Yeah.
And letting go of the shame that is oftentimes attached to traumas that, even though they weren't your fault.
Yeah.
But one of the things I realized that I inherited from my father that I think has also helped me, especially now, is after my father died, his best friend, he said that he had never met a man who was as kind as my father was.
Aww.
Kind is a value. Being kind is something that helps me feel good about myself, as well as the beginning of spreading joy to others. And it doesn't cost anything.
No, and it's, you create connection and friendships.
Yes.
And then it's exponential beyond there.
And once it's sort of contagious.
Yes.
Once you become that kind of motivation and tap into that energy, that creative, powerful, manifesting abundance of energy and abundance of whatever, it just continues to multiply, and it spreads joyously throughout the world.
Yeah. Those who are suffering and are in a really dark place, where do they start?
I think starting with being okay with experiencing that emotion, whatever it might be, if it might be grief or loss or anger or whatever, allowing yourself to really recognize that, honor that feeling, and then call in your other resources and the other parts of you. Being self-nurturing, I think is really, really valuable.
Yeah. And forgiving
and
yourself.
Laughter, forgiving yourself, and laughter and humor and dark humor. I have the darkest humor ever.
I love dark humor.
Even my children have it. Every time that song, "The Reindeers Ran Over."
Grandma got run over.
Grandma got over. That kids would sing it and giggle, and because their grandma got ran over. They were adults when that happened, but
Well, I appreciate you being here today, Amber, and we're going to bring our interview to a close now. The interview portion is coming to a close, but I always end my podcasts, as some of my viewers know, with my guest sharing something, some form of self-expression, something that they do or that they've done that helps them in their healing. And so Amber, being an artist, is going to share some ways that art has helped her, and she's actually going to share some of her work with us. So we're going to move to another room and be right back. So here we are in Amber's gallery. This is actually her classroom where she teaches art. So
the artist collective's work.
The artist collective's work. And in here,
my work.
And I'm going to have you get a little closer to the microphone so we can hear you. But this is Amber's work. This is part of her therapy. Why don't you tell us a little bit about this wall?
This wall has been, most of the paintings have been a therapeutic process for myself, as well as teaching things. It's both photography and watercolor. The photos of the orchids were in Hawaii when I went away on retreat with artists to heal and continue to find my creative balance. This is one of those kind of spiritual paintings that just materialized itself.
Beautiful
Walks
colors.
in nature are very important to
Oh,
me.
absolutely.
And then the paintings with words on them were actually one of my art lessons that I taught in my Thursday class, but they also had meaning to me.
Oh, this is great. Trust.
Yeah, Trust 3.
And then, Trust 3.
And then
Hope.
the Hope. And
And over here we have
life and I get visitors in my painting sometimes. Hence the shaman that showed up here, and another kind of medicine man. It seems like like a medicine man to me that showed up in that one.
Interesting. Wow. This is beautiful work. If you'd like to hear more podcasts like these, visit our website, speakbravely.com, and access our Listener's Corner. And if you have a survival story to share, we would love to hear from you. Just visit our website, speakbravely.com, and submit an interview request. We also welcome videos, written narratives, and spoken word poetry. I've linked our website in the notes below. Until then, take care of yourselves, and may peace and healing be with you.